How's it going, buddy?
It's going
good
great.
to see you this morning.
Yeah, no, it's going great. I mean, we're in the playoffs right now, inside the bubble. It's exciting, and at this time of the year, couldn't ask for much better than this.
Quick. Actually, just going off last night, guys. Just wanted to ask them. You guys really pour in, and just to start it off, the hockey talk. Great. It was a great hockey game to watch. What do you do? What is do you feel when a team loses in a game, like in an overtime or a shootout, that it can take the same life out of a team that when you lose in regulation?
Well,
it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting because you're never happy.
No.
We all agreed that it was a great point.
Yeah.
You're going to Carolina, tough place to play, good team. And, going into it, if someone would have said, would you take a point? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it doesn't change the feeling of a loss after a game, even if you lose in overtime or a shootout. And even through the way we play, we're extremely happy with the way we played the game in Carolina, but it doesn't take the sting off.
Yeah.
So, Danny, here's how I wanted to start today. Is I'm gonna climb back into the DeLorean, get it up to 1.21 gigawatts. The weather's perfect for this story, right?
87 miles an hour.
87 miles per hour, right? And I go back to September, and I tell you, hey, Danny, 12 games to go. You're going to be 2 points up in a playoff spot.
Yep.
What does Danny tell me in September when
I'll
I say
take it.
that?
I'll take it, and I'll take my chance.
But what does Danny say then if I say, on the way, you're going to trade one of your top 4 defensemen, you're going to have 3 other starting defensemen out injured, you're going to lose your starting goalie, your captain, you're going to name a captain, and he's going to get scratched for a couple of games in March, and you're still going to be in that spot. Are you that surprised? Are you surprised yet?
Look, hey, going into the season, we were hoping to play some, playoff-type atmosphere games coming down the stretch and battle for a spot. When you look to start the season, you look at especially our division, even our conference. With all the teams that were around, we thought, New Jersey would be near the top with Carolina and the Rangers. You have to think that Pittsburgh and Washington still make a push with, the players, the superstar players, even though they're getting older. You'd think they'd be in the mix. You look at what Columbus did last offseason, adding 2 top 4 defensemen. You think they're going to bounce back. So where did it leave us back then? Probably at the bottom. That's
right.
how most people had seen it. So yeah, it's an extremely great place to be at the moment.
How have you looked at what's obviously there's been a lot of news the last few days, obviously with Sean being out of the lineup. And there's been a lot of people talking about it. There's been opinions all over the place. You've talked about how when you've played with a guy, like you have a different kind of bond with that player.
Yep.
This is a little bit even more so. I mean, Sean lived with you and your kids. Like it's a whole nother level with that.
Absolutely.
As the GM, how are you able to kind of separate that with what's going on, and then secondly, how were you viewing towards his decision to scratch him for a couple of games?
Yeah, well, just to start with John, our coach, it's not his job to be best friends with the players. Mm-hmm. It's his job to get the most out of them. Now, you can agree or disagree on how he goes about it, but at the end of the day, that's his job. That's what he's paid to do, and that's what he's trying to do, and that's the technique that he's using. When I flip to the other side with Sean, obviously there's a bond there, and there's a respect between the two of us, and there's also I think Sean hasn't played well enough the last month of the season. Mm-hmm. The encouraging part for me is how we played in the first half. We know it's there. Coming out of the 2-year hiatus that he was on, it wasn't an easy situation. So the way I look at it today is we know Sean can still be a good player. He proved that in the first half of the season. Played a lot of heavy minutes, and is that what caught up to him? I don't know, but he lost a little bit of his jump lately, and but it's still there, and that's the encouraging part for me. Is I know Sean can still play. I know Sean is still going to help us down the stretch, and he's going to help us make the playoffs. That's the way I see it. So it's not fun to see. It's not something that you enjoy seeing, but at the same time, I think it's going to help him. I think it's going to put him back on track. It gives him the chance to refocus, maybe get angry a little bit. Because when you play with an edge, I remember as a player, even myself, you play with an edge, you're able to go get a little bit, dig a little deeper and find a little bit more. And, you know, I hope Sean uses that to, you know, prove to his coach and everybody else that he's still, you know, the player that he was in the first half of the season.
And I think this is one last follow-up on that, is that so it's fair to say that it's, you know, what we're all seeing is it's more physical and not necessarily, oh, he's not playing the game the right way, right? I mean, he's still playing the game the right way, the way that you would want the guy to play. It's just kind of a physical thing catching up to him.
The tank's empty a little bit.
Yeah, because he played a lot of minutes.
He did.
You think about it, he hasn't played for 2 years, and we
Right.
put him back, and you know, and part of it is, you know, the situation. He was forced because we didn't have the centerman at the beginning of the season that were ready to take on the load that he was given, playing 20, 22 minutes a night for a guy who hasn't played in 2 years. That was a lot to ask out of him, and I thought he's part of the reason where we are today because of his play.
Yes,
you know, and then you look at how Morgan Frost has turned his score turn a season around. Paling has just gotten better and better, and then, you know, Scotty Lawton early in the season was having his trouble as well, and now he's playing much better also. So, you know, we also have all these other guys that are pushing, that are asking for more ice time because of the way they're playing, and we have all the young guys that are also looking for more responsibilities because of the way they've been playing. So, in a sense, it was good to give Sean the chance to maybe recuperate a little bit more. But I know, you know, when we say that, he doesn't want to be scratched.
Right.
Nobody expected it to maybe go that far.
Did you guys have discussions at the time saying that, you know, hey, we know we're going to push him a little bit here, play those 20, 22 minutes a night, that there was a possibility that this would be the outcome because he might hit that wall a little bit?
We had those discussions along the way.
Yeah.
You know, because early on we were asking a lot of him.
Yeah.
He was playing on the power play. He was facing all the top lines. He was the first on the penalty kill. And we had those discussions together with the coaching staff as far as, well, we're asking a lot. And Sean was really beat up too. He took, if you remember, you go back to early in the season, Sean was missing some practices here and there.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just to recuperate from playing 22 minutes. He was really banged up. Yeah, I think at one point he had 5 different injuries that he was dealing with, and he was still playing.
With the back kind of holding it all together.
And the back was the best part for him.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Everything else was hurting, but the back was okay, so we were feeling good about it. But it's, you know, Sean plays hard, and we were asking a lot of him. So hopefully this is just a little reset, gives him the chance to refocus a little bit, and we're going to need him. There's no doubt about that we're going to need him down the stretch and in the playoffs if or when we get in.
I think what's unique with it, really, and I'll finish off, we'll move to the next thing, but I think what's interesting with it becomes polarizing because he is Sean Couturier, and he does the right thing. He plays the game the right way, right? So that's why I think it becomes kind of like you get two different sides of the coin.
Correct.
And we're both former players, and we look at it in a different way than perhaps someone at the professional end of it. I look at it and say, man, this guy does an awful lot. But then we're also failed to realize that he has missed 2 years. And he played a bulk load. You're not where you are without him. There's no question.
Absolutely, you're so right about that. He's done a lot of good things, and he's going to do more good things for us. You know, and I know it's normal. People are questioning what's going on. Why is he getting scratched? But at the end of the day, he's going to get back in the lineup, and I expect him to pick up where he was and get back on track. And and I remember as a player too, sometimes when things are not going, and Sean hasn't I think scored 1 goal in the last 25 games, something like that. Sometimes just that little reset, you know, can change the focus somewhere else, and it gets you back on track. I know it's happened to me in the past, and I hope it's we're able to do the same with Sean.
Well, I do want to kind of pull this out a little bit bigger picture, because ultimately you're trying to build a team that's going to win for an extended period of time. You're not trying to do the patchwork thing that, in fairness, this franchise did for about 2 decades, right? Where it's just constant, you know, patchwork, and it's, you know, you're on the bubble, and it's never really a contender. The coach is the coach. He does what he does. Last year he did this with Kevin Hayes. He did this with James Van Riemsdyk. He has a history of, you know, scratching vets, trying to send a message. When there are so many young guys in the locker room, was there a concern at all on your end about this might not be the guy to scratch because it is the captain. He's a month into the captaincy, and there are a lot of young guys in that locker room.
Yep.
He plays the right way. He might be banged up, but like, was there a concern culture-wise, longer term?
So it's a good question, and what I would say to that is, when you have the right room, when you have the right leadership, it doesn't scare you. And Sean Couturier, the person that I know, the leader that I know, not happy about it. And he did make a couple comments, but he's not going to let that trickle through the locker room. He cares about his teammates. He cares about his team. He's only known Flyers organization. He's got the Flyers tattooed, on his heart. He's one of the ultimate leader. He's most likely going to be a Flyer forever, even when he's done playing on the ice. So I have no doubt that he won't let that happen. So, no, not an issue at all.
And I wanted to follow up on one other thing with him specifically, because in his entire tenure here, I don't remember him ever making comments like he did, where he was very clearly frustrated with the decision because, again, he's been playing the right way, and he's a competitor. And I did see, and I want to address this, I guess, there were some fans who looked at it and said, he's got to get his ego in check. I've never heard of Sean Couturier referred to as a narcissist or an egomaniac before.
No.
But since you played with him and now you're in this capacity, can you kind of speak to that a little bit about like his character and
totally
maybe dispel that?
And I think he was probably caught by surprise a little bit himself. I don't think he expected it to go that far. And he's never had to deal with that in his career. That was the first for him too. As a player, that's always tough the first time.
Brutal.
When it happens. It's brutal. You think the world is caving in and there's no way out. And
your world's
it ends.
Yeah, it feels like your world's ending.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what I attribute it to, as far as the comments being saying he's embarrassed. But no, there's no worry about that. He's the ultimate. Look, John gave him the C. Because it's not like he was playing great when he gave him the C either, but he knew when he had dealt with him on the bench and the way he was reacting through, even when his ice time was getting shortened, game after game, and the way he reacted, the way he cheered on his teammates. Even the game against Toronto, the day he was scratched, he was in the locker room after the game, high-fiving the guys.
Yeah.
He had dinner with the guys in the locker room. Jonesy and I walked in. We saw him sitting, laughing with his teammates. He's able to put his ego aside and be the ultimate player. So it hurts, and I know inside he's burning, but at the same time, when he was with his teammates, that's the first thing, the most important thing was about the team and his teammates.
I know that we only have you for a couple more minutes, Danny. I want to get to a couple other things.
Oh, there was one good. I think.
Oh,
I
thought you had another question.
I do. It's a really
see
good
what I
one.
deal with every night, Danny.
You mentioned the fact that Torts gave him the C, and that was another thing that had come up because for over a year he said, "I'm not naming a captain. There will not be a captain even this year. There won't be a captain." Just ahead of the deadline, there were kind of things going around about interest in Lawton. And you guys, I want to know if it was a collective decision between you and Torts and Jonesy, but you guys opted to give Travis Konechny an A and Sean Couturier the C. Was that something that you guys had been in conversation about the entire year? Was it something that kind of came to the forefront closer to the deadline? Like, where did that happen?
One thing I can tell you that John Tortorella does better than any coach I've seen or been around is how he manages the locker room, how he understands, I should say, the locker room. He didn't like it when he arrived here, and he built it the way he wanted it to be. He didn't have Sean last year, and he wasn't sure which direction the captaincy was going to go. Coming into this year, he knew Sean was coming back in the fold. He didn't know him. He hadn't been to battle with him. He hadn't seen him on the bench when things are getting tough. Because and that's the other thing. You see the true character of people when things are going sideways, not when everything is going well. He wanted to see, how Sean, because obviously, we had talked, and when Claude Giroux was traded, we all assumed that it was Sean's team at that point. But John hadn't seen it, hadn't had the chance to be in a battle and tough games or when things are going sideways with Sean, and that's what he got to see. And he came one night and he said, I'm ready to name captain. Sean has really reacted well through adversity this year. He's like, I'm comfortable with it. I think he deserves it. And that's when we all moved in, but it was Torts' decision, and it was Torts' decision on TK as well to give him an A. He says he's ready to take on more leadership as well. So it was all Torts.
Am I allowed to ask?
You asked a few. I just have to.
I'm good, actually. You just ask him when we get into warm up, so he can get. I'll walk him back over there so he doesn't get jumped by the fans.
That's
You're going to be
fine.
the
I'm
bodyguard?
going to piggyback him.
No, I just wanted to ask you about just an update on the injured players. Do you have anything on those guys?
They're still rehabbing. It's looking better and better. As far as the timeline, it's tough to tell. I would say Sealer, we know a little bit more. We're hoping in the next couple weeks that he can come back. The other two defensemen, Drysdale and Ristolainen, they've been skating on their own. They're taking a bigger chunk every day, but we're still not sure exactly as far as the timeline goes. But we're hopeful that they'll be back before the end of the season.
Just last one for me, Danny. Goaltending. Jonesy's mentioned a couple things. Any update on Kolosov or any of the Russian situation with that, or having another netminder present as the playoffs approach?
We're still working on that with Kolosov. There's nothing new. There's a lot of paperwork to go through, immigration stuff. So we're still working on it. We're hopeful that in the next 10 days to 2 weeks, maybe something unfolds and he can come over.
Good.
Great.
Excellent.
Well, Danny, thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Danny.
We appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.
Go enjoy the pregame.
Will do.
Yep. And
Have a good show.
Yep,
Thanks,
appreciate
guys.
you.
Thanks for having
Thanks,
me.
Danny.
Thank you.
I'll get
Flyers GM Danny Briere here on the Press Row Show. Like we always say, you never know who's going to make their way onto the Press Row Show.
Appreciate it.
And of course, it is. I mean, we say it a lot, but it's the #1 rated pregame, intermission, postgame show this side of the Mississippi, south of the Arctic Circle, and north of the equator. So, thanks for coming on. So, a lot of good stuff there. There was a lot of info. Listen, we love you. You love me.
Yes.
We're a happy family with a great big hug. Not a kiss from me to you. Won't you say? Well, we all love all of you too.